I'm going to be honest, this video was meant to be published in March. Hi guys, it's Linn here. Today I'm going to just doodle some Ichiruki fan art, maybe just bleach art in general, I don't know yet, but I thought it'd be fun to just chat about Bleach as a whole while doing so. I hope you enjoy! So I was inspired a lot by Full House, the Korean drama, and honestly the way Lee and Han Ji-yoon fight is basically like how Ichigo and Rukia do. So why not? I actually had this video idea in March. I've been a fan of Bleach for over a decade, and since this happened, I haven't really revisited it. Of course, when the 2018 live action came out, I did make this, and I did rekindle my love for it. And then in March, earlier this year, I was struck down by the Bleach gods, and was almost obsessed with making this video. A few days after I uploaded that second Bleach FMV, news of the 𝓹𝓸𝓲 Blood War being animated came out, and that was kinda trippy, but it was all good news. And now here we are, finally getting this video off of the ground while it's still kind of Ichiruki month. So yay! So I know that we can't really discuss Bleach without first clearing up the ending, which was chapter 686. And I know a lot of Bleach fans will voice out that it wasn't only the ships that sunk, it was also the story. Things were rushed, things didn't make sense, things just basically crashed and burned. But aside from Bleach's storyline just sort of derailing in the final arc, I'd like to discuss some things which I have realized about the last chapter. Things that have made me less mad about its existence. Still mad, just slightly less. Before anything, I would just like to preface this by saying that Kubo is a genius, and we've honestly all failed him as Bleach fans because we didn't understand his hidden message. We all gathered that the last chapter was absolute bull because everyone was just so out of character. Sorry for interrupting. By the way, I just want to say that I'm done with my first drawing. It was purely inspired by this scene from Full House. Honestly, the proportions are completely non-existent, but I'm also not an artist, so hopefully that's okay. Now for my second doodle, I can't help but think of this other scene from Full House and how it would be absolutely perfect. If you haven't watched Full House, you really should because it's an oldie but a goodie. And in this scene, Lee is actually trying to mark his territory by telling this other guy that his wife is pregnant when she's really not. So anyway, I'm just going to continue drawing and working on this piece, and let's get back to talking about Bleach. Aside from this, and this, happening, Ishida became a doctor of all things, and Chad became some sort of boxer or fighter. Literally, this is the dude that hated his dad, who was a doctor. And let's not forget that this is also the guy that loves fashion. And on the other hand, this is the guy that promised his late abuelo, am I saying it right? Oh my god. That he would only use his strength to protect others, and never use it for profit or personal gain, and then he goes and does this, and he beats up people for monetary gain. Okay. Now the part where we all failed is that we got mad at this. We thought it was a really crappy ending, which is still not false, because it's still really bad, but this ending was so out of character. And it was all done with so much purpose, and yet we were all too blind to see why Kubo did this. Yhwach, and Ewok. Yhwach was... I literally can't say his name. Yhwach, this guy, this dude, his name here, Yhwach. Yuck. I can't even say his name. Oh my god. Yhwach. Oh my god. You know what? We're just gonna refer to him as Y because I literally cannot pronounce his name. It's It's so weird. Okay. Why was their final enemy? And in that final battle, he told Ichigo, Rukia, and Renji that he would find the future in which all of them felt the greatest amount of joy and happiness, and he would just slaughter them. The insane thing is, we weren't meant to just let this piece of info fly over our heads. Just look at this spread. Just look at Ichigo's face. Obviously, they took this threat to heart, so much so that they literally just thought, we seriously can't deal with this dude. And for safety's sake, we should literally go the extra mile to live our most unfulfilled lives so that we never have to see this guy ever again. Honestly, I think I liked my second drawing more than my first. Both completely disregard any sort of anatomy, but it's slightly better than the first one, right? Drawing eyes honestly scare me the most, so the fact that I actually drew in their eyes and they're opened is seriously such a big accomplishment alone. For my next drawing, I actually found out that Kubo was inspired by Snufkin and used him as inspiration for Urahara's design. And it shows! Did y'all know this? If you don't know who Snufkin is, he's a character from Moomin Valley, and he's just such a mood. Hands down, he's my favorite character from that series. His best friend is Moomin, who is a cow. Which makes sense that Yoruichi is also just randomly also a cat. But this video isn't about Moomin Valley, so I won't be going into details on that. But either way, Urahara might just be my favorite character from Bleach. He's OP, funny, super chill, and he always knows what's up. This might be a trend though, because I also really love Shunsui. He's also kind of OP, super funny, and is also chill. I don't know. Honestly, my top 3 favorite Bleach characters are Urahara, Shunsui, and Toshiro. But I also really love Isshin. Anyway, if you haven't already gathered, I decided to draw Urahara in Snufkin's clothes and vice versa. And with that in mind, everything kind of falls into place, and you kind of learn what Kubo was trying to accomplish. Honestly, Kubo really thought that he could live the best of both worlds, in which Ichihime fans, who weren't really hardcore Bleach fans, would be happy, because Ichigo's out there with the girl that he never even called by her first name until the 686th chapter. And on the other hand, Ichiruki fans would be really happy because they knew what was really going on. But unfortunately, Kubo never expected us to not comprehend what he was trying to achieve. We didn't understand anything. With this in mind, of course Ichigo would give up on being literally the strongest Shinigami and resume to being some ordinary human. Ask yourself this, when was Ichigo the most depressed aside from when his mother passed away? During those 17 months without his powers, Ichigo was an absolute mess. He missed Rukia, he missed Soul Society, the rain never stopped, and on top of voluntarily abandoning his powers to live his most unfulfilled life, Ichigo intentionally watched the woman he loves marry the guy who strangled her. And let's not be so quick to forget that he was actively fighting for her execution. Rukia ultimately married the guy who never understood her. Renji liked Rukia. Maybe he even loved her. And yet he was forced to watch the woman he loved spend the rest of her life away from her soulmate. Renji knew that he could never understand Rukia, that he could never love her the way that Ichigo does. Orihime married the man who could clearly never love her, because he was very evidently in love with someone else. Also, are we forgetting that this woman longs and wishes to be the rain? Of course Ichigo's gonna marry her if his goal is to protect everyone by living his most unhappy life. Ichigo absolutely hates the rain. It makes him suicidal. It fills him with such self-loathing. And let's not forget that even Zangetsu hates the rain. His own sword and soul hates the rain. Which means Ichigo not only personally hates the rain, he hates it on a spiritual level. Ishida not only became a doctor, but he had to watch the woman he loves marry someone who could never love her. To top it all off, Ichigo's a Shinigami. Are we forgetting that he absolutely hated Shinigamis because they killed his people and also watched his grandfather die instead of saving him? Now, it might be pathetic to continue to discuss this matter in such detail when it is ultimately all fiction, but I've been sitting here and drawing for hours, and I've had the time to multitask and think about the series. It wasn't even intentional. Something that I never quite understood was this. In the final chapter, Y's little portal or dimension suddenly appears, and suddenly all trace of him disappears when Ichigo's son stuffs his fists into it. While a lot of people have accepted this as gospel, and that this kid's just extremely strong, and that he just miraculously defeated Ichigo's strongest foe by simply existing, and then it all suddenly hit me. Y is literally just jumping dimensions, looking for the future in which all of them are at their happiest. Y suddenly appeared after all these years when Rukia finally visited Karakura town, just to see Ichigo. Their reunion literally summoned Y. And just when he was about to appear to basically slaughter them, Ichigo's son stuck his hand into the portal. Of course, seeing Ichigo's son just simply existing drove him away. Y realized that this was the reality in which Ichigo literally had a baby with a woman who could never understand him or love him the way he needed to be loved. She wanted to be the rain which causes Ichigo so much grief and sadness. Of course Y was gonna leave. This wasn't the future where they were living their happiest life. How could it be when this thing exists? By the way, since we're discussing the final chapter, I'd like to think that Isshin was also nowhere to be found because he had a massive falling out with his son. Isshin just simply couldn't believe that he'd raised such a coward of a son who was foolish enough to be so consumed by Y's words. After all, Isshin was always cheering on Ichigo and Rukia. He constantly referred to her as his third daughter. He worked with Urahara and Rukia to get that special sword made. Honestly, there was absolutely no reason for Isshin not to be the one to restore Ichigo's powers. Isshin had no issues with basically teaching Ichigo how to lose his powers. It would have made sense for him to return it to his own son. But no! Isshin knew about Ichigo and Rukia's beginning, and he decided it was best to leave it to the woman of Ichigo's life. He respected their origin together, and no one could understand Ichigo's journey with Rukia better than Isshin himself. After all, he went through pretty much the exact same love story. He knows what it's like. I would also like to think that Ichigo would rather choose to live his life of complete and utter unhappiness and unfulfillment, rather than watch the love of his life go through the same thing that his mother went through. Y is legitimately such a big threat. He could kill Rukia, and if leading a sad life could prevent that from happening, why wouldn't Ichigo do it? He would rather be constantly sad and just let the rain continue to pour on if it meant that there wouldn't be a future where he had a kid with the love of his life, and the love of his life died protecting their kid. Doesn't that sound familiar? In the end, Ichigo literally just lived his life like Crank Casey.
Never try, never fail. Those are the words I live by.
And this is why I can't help but say that Kubo was just an absolute genius. He thought about this. Why was that much of a threat? And Ichigo, the guy who has already fought so hard to change so much, was finally afraid. He wasn't going to take that risk or gamble when his woman's life was at stake. In the Soul Society arc, Rukia was going to die whether or not he fought, and that's why he so readily put his life down on the line for her. Whereas this time, it was trading their unhappiness, and he would rather let the rain pour down than watch the woman he loves die. Also, just a random thought, have you ever noticed that Ichigo and Rukia kind of remind you of Just Like Heaven? I mean, this dude really wanted to get rid of the ghost, and then in the end he falls in love with her, like what?